Hello. It's great to talk to you again. Why don't you start by introducing yourself and maybe talking a little bit about what Somm Says does?
My name is Hunter Rudd. I'm the founder and CEO of Somm Says. Way back in 2015, seemingly a whole different lifetime ago, I came up with an idea to create a wine tasting game. And the whole idea was to give consumers a fun, social, interactive way to engage with wine, learn about wine tasting, and share their feedback back with local businesses. And on the flip side, I wanted to make it easier for businesses to turn their tasting notes, right? The way they describe wine to consumers into an interactive experience that, of course, their consumers could take home that ideally leads to better interactions, both for the business and for the consumers, and allows a certain degree of customizability. Now, in today's day and age, we know that that's a fun idea, but it takes a number of integrations in order to turn that application, right? Both on the business side and on the consumer side into meaningful experiences. In today's day and age, with Azure, AWS, let alone all your different layers of your technical architecture, exceedingly cost prohibitive, complex, and difficult to manage. And so I think that's where you and I first connected.
Yeah, it was right around that time when you were looking for some integrations that you reached out. For people who don't know, why don't I introduce myself? I'm Miles Pines. I am one of the co-founders of Endgrate, and we provide a simple connection that lets you get access to over 200 integrations in hopefully less than a week. And we try to keep it as simple and flexible as possible. So yeah, why don't we talk about any specific pain points or challenges you had which led to you reaching out to us?
As we look at the modern ecosystem of partners, right, let's forget the technology and let's talk about the people for a second. The biggest challenge for us was making the right data accessible in the right format to the right people. That traditionally would have been done through a portalized structure where a member of our customer team would have to basically swivel chair or pivot between two different platforms at once. And that in the modern environment in which we operate slows things down, it leads to error, and it creates enormous difficulties in automating the types of tasks that simply have to be automated to reach the number of customers that a business has to reach. And we're not even talking about large enterprises. We're really focused on the countless number of small and medium-sized enterprises that have these new and innovative email systems, CRM. They're doing automated marketing, automated offer generation. And in today's complex environment, you simply can't force your employees or expect them to perform well when they're having to do that traditional process. And that means integration. We need to take the data from its host system or wherever it's accumulated, in our case in Somm Says, and then make that available in the host systems in which our clients are using. For a startup like mine, it's simply not possible to build and address the number of different variables in that architecture. Looking at just the CRM landscape, and I'm going to come across users that are using an Excel table, but they're also using things like HubSpot Starter, Salesforce Starter. They're using advanced systems that exist within Adobe's Marketing Cloud, those enterprise level systems, or let alone Oracle, Microsoft. The challenge was really, how do we achieve a measure of integration scale so that we can effectively address our clients' needs in a timely manner, but also in a way that actually reflects the true ongoing cost of integrations, right? This is where your ability to actually dynamically adapt and adjust and quickly roll out new integrations was critical. I mean, being able to come across a new client and accept their business, knowing that we don't yet have integrations to their architecture, and look to partners like Endgrate to turn those integrations on in a very quick timeline at an incredibly palatable cost was a critical requirement for us to even be successful, not just today, but obviously looking ahead at the advances that are taking place.
We love to focus on being sort of the white glove solution to integration. So it's the ongoing maintenance separate from the setup, which is normally what most people think about as the large upfront cost, but actually maintaining and building new integrations when you get requests. That's sort of our bread and butter. So thank you for talking about that. We talked a bit about import. Could you talk a little bit about how that could be useful?
One of the biggest challenges for us in managing product and merchandising data. So this includes importing relevant information about the products and services. And those products and services have information hosted in their producer's database or a producer's website. It's hosted in POS and e-commerce systems. We need to be able to look across all those solutions to find the right information to present to the right user at the right time. So it's not just about pushing information out, it's also about pulling information in. So many of these integrations in today's day and age need to be bidirectional because there's a sharing of information that's happening. And once we look into the future, we're seeing that increasingly autonomous systems, intelligent autonomous systems, and regardless of what your perceptions are about AI or machine learning, that these integrations, they have to be dynamic, not only bi-directional, but they have to actually be adaptive. So as new features and functions are rolled out on one or other endpoints, it needs to adapt and adjust dynamically. Otherwise, as you increase the number of connections, both in providing information to clients, but also pulling in data, that complexity, it essentially, you run up against a frontier in terms of how many systems you can actually integrate with at any given time. The key headwind to that is, how do you manage those connections on an ongoing basis? As this adaptation, change, and innovation happens across your ecosystem of integrations, like, how do you maintain consistency? How do you ensure effectiveness of the integration? How do you ensure that there's consistent reliability within that, all while adapting? That's one of the biggest things for us. It's not just pushing information out, but it's being able to continuously pull in the most valuable information for us to then surface for both our business users on the business side, but especially our consumers. I mean, consumers in today's day and age are not happy waiting. Think back to when Amazon had its original epiphany that if they couldn't deliver their website to the right customer in like 3 or 4 seconds, the customer's likelihood of making a purchase just plummeted. So they recognized that they needed, as an e-commerce retailer, the original e-commerce retailer, to build these integrations that would allow a customer anywhere in their market area to get the right product information as quickly as possible. Now let's take that forward to today, 20 years later. We're now talking about not just the speed of execution, but we also have to think not only about timeliness, but relevance. And that's where we have to pull in all these data from all these constituent endpoints in order to make sure that what we're presenting to the user is not only timely, that's important, but also highly relevant.
That is one of the big things that we offer. It's just a wide variety of integrations that you effectively don't have to worry about. So you can always say yes to your customer. Like, do you have access to a HubSpot or a Shopify or a Salesforce? You can always say yes, no matter what it is.
That's a great point. Let me build on that because I don't think I hit home. As a business leader, have time, nor do I have the capital to allocate to non-core activities. Managing integrations is not necessarily a core activity that I really want my business and let alone my team members to focus on. We're in the business of providing exceptional wine-related and beverage-related experiences to consumers and also to businesses. Your business is core to you, but it's not core to me. The more that we can find partners like Endgrate that can help us focus and not worry about the emerging complexity in the environment around us, to me, that's important noise, but it's still noise that keeps us away from the signal coming from our users, staying focused on our clients and our customers and our end consumers. That really is I believe, a competitive advantage for me, certainly, and I think for our business as a whole.
We are very proud that we get to basically let any business owner focus on their core business instead of, devoting a large amount of time to integrations, which are critical, but not actually what you excel at. Were there any unexpected benefits that you didn't know about before connection or during the connection process?
The biggest thing for us was a paradigm shift in the way we could approach our consumers. Being able to approach consumers and articulate and demonstrate our ability to be flexible, our ability to intelligently and reliably say we can adapt and we can address your challenges is key. It fundamentally changes the nature of the conversation. In many cases, when we're selling, now Somm Says is a freemium solution. We offer a free service that's available, very similar to what you get in most SaaS models. We're selling our product and our solution because we're there not only to earn money, we're also there to earn access to that client's customers. One of the biggest hesitancies that these business owners have is the anxiety and the stress related to their architectural complexity. Are concerned and in some cases rightfully resistant to adding a new system into their architecture when they are barely able to manage their existing architecture. We had an unforeseen benefit. It helped us immensely in how we could approach clients, take that worry off the table, get it out of the negotiating room, get it out of the conversation, allows both ourselves and the customer to focus on the value proposition and the solution without worrying about cost complexity, technical complexity, or operational complexity related to the sprawling ecosystem of systems and services that we all use today.
Yeah, I like to think about it as sort of a marketplace in a box where you can get access to everything you need in, a fraction of the time that you would if you did it yourself. Did you have any initial concerns or hesitations before you onboarded to Endgrate?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give everyone a little bit of context, I'm a former special forces soldier. I spent 10 years in the military during that critical period between 2003 and 2013. And even in the special operations community, and you can look back at the literature that's all publicly available on this, but there was an enormous challenge adapting to modern information-driven warfare. You're dealing with Navy, Air Force, Army systems interoperating in the modern battlefield. Well, that lesson learned brought me into today's day and age. Once I left the military, I ended up at Duke, where I did my MBA, and a lot of that discussion centered on technology-driven change. Well, I carried that forth into my work at Deloitte, later in my work at other Fortune 500 companies, where I focused on helping businesses calculate the cost of adding new systems into their enterprise architecture. Anyone that's been in this business faces a certain or has this inherent level of incredulity, right? I just mentioned talking to clients and customers that have this creeping fear in the back of their mind that says, oh no, another block in my enterprise architecture. The connections are multiplying exponentially. So I had a healthy skepticism. The biggest thing that I was concerned with was, oh no, how am I going to manage this? One of the first things that we talked about was how your team is able to tap into a unique way and a unique operational approach that allows a lot of those justified fears that existed in almost a past technology era are not necessarily as relevant to future decision making. One of the reasons why I'm frankly here is because so much of my past history in the world of technology, both on the military side as well as on the commercial side, has always been based on this underlying fear of the cost and ongoing complexity related to a sprawling enterprise architecture. And in many ways, getting over that and seeing your team in action has helped me adopt a more optimistic perspective on how, even as the enterprise ecosystem of applications and services just continues to grow exponentially year on year, it's not actually as big of a challenge to actually take and connect with the most innovative and new services and settings while also being able to support your legacy systems and services. That's powerful. For me, that was one of the first concerns I stepped into this engagement with. And it's now one that I'm feeling much more optimistic now, several months on, especially as we look into the future.
That is something we try to focus on. You shouldn't have to worry about what someone else's system looks like or what strange new process you need to do to actually get the data into your customers' hands. You can basically just leave that to us, and it's sort of our specialty is developing the specific types and integrations and processes that enable you to use the data as effectively as you need to succeed. This is our last question, but as your needs evolve, do you think Endgrate has the flexibility to adapt to your end goals?
Absolutely. I mean, at this point in the conversation, anybody that's heard any of my past comments knows that that's going to probably be one of your biggest strengths. We are entering a new era. Previously, the way that most executives in the technology space looked at the world was they looked at it through the lens of generically sort of your people, processes, and technology. The way those people, processes, and technology work together to affect experiences for the customer was a critical component of your decision making. The problem is that as the number and complexity of your technology systems expand, and as enterprises have to adapt their people to those challenges, you have this ever-present challenge of modifying processes. We think of that in terms of people, processes, and technology, and we know inherently that people have to talk to one another. So different functional roles within an organization have to communicate and coordinate. Rarely do we ever truly appreciate the fact that while we can quickly and easily and dynamically adapt our organization to address changes, we don't necessarily, and we haven't in the past had the ability to be as dynamic with increasingly one of the largest capital costs and CapEx investment sources in organizations, which is our technology architecture. Creating and using tools like Endgrate that can allow a greater degree of flexibility within an enterprise architecture means that businesses in the future have two challenges. One is we can't forget about the people. And so making the data and the systems interoperability more transparent to and less sort of incumbent on people training and development by putting the right data in the right system in the right format that they can just use it intuitively in their work is critical, because we can't simply evolve technology without bringing our people along with it. So that's one. We also need to think about how we can not be captive to any one or more pieces of our enterprise architecture. I mean, when I think about negotiating enterprise deals with companies in the past, one of the things that I constantly worried about was customer capture. Is this part of my enterprise architecture going to become so fixed and entrenched that I can never extract it if I believe that the terms of that, the licensing terms or the fee terms for that system are not necessarily in my business's advantage? So again, while that's easier to do on the human capital side of the coin, we need to start looking at, and I believe we can all, with Endgrate's technology, be more optimistic about how I can be not only more dynamic with the way I manage human capital, but with the way I manage and invest in technology capital. That
Yeah,
leads me to feel much more optimistic.
yeah, that's perfect. I mean, that's exactly what we try to do. Is we try to just get rid of the problem in your head. You shouldn't have to focus on integrations in any way other than just saying yes. That's sort of the entire goal of Endgrate. Is there anything else you want to say, or anything people should look forward to around Somm Says in the future?
With Somm Says, our biggest focus now is on identifying additional partners, right? So we have created a model that is incredibly effective at helping a business reach consumers, but that dyadic approach doesn't truly help the broader ecosystem of businesses that support our client. And so one of the biggest things we want to be able to do is provide, what we call today is a customer 360, but we want to be able to take the consumer's voice, that customer 360, and we want to be able to share it automatically up from our clients to their value chain. What I mean by that is as consumer patterns change in this weird and sometimes topsy-turvy economic world we live in, we want to better integrate the consumer's voice into decision making that happens upstream of our client and our customer. Right. In the beverage industry, you think of the value chain as being everyone from the investor and the producer to the importer or distributor, all the way down to my client. And in the beverage world, we have a three-tier system. So you have multiple layers of sort of a value chain that are always going to be there. And what it means today is as consumer preferences changes, we not only want to let our customer know that their customer is suddenly liking a different style of product or services, but we want to actually be able to send those signals up the value chain so that my customer supplier already has visibility and awareness as their consumer marketplace adapts and changes. And that requires an incredible amount of complexity. So I'm genuinely excited about the potential to take, what you guys are doing and actually scale the ability and scale the reach and impact, the data we have, the impact that that can have upstream.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited too. Hopefully we get to see that happen in the future. Thank you so much for talking with me today. It was a really, really good interview. Thank you.
Absolutely.